Okay. Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner Classic Known Classics. This is episode number 1811 and Doubleshot number 1705. I have two DC trades, well, digital ones anyways. But starting tomorrow, basically, I'll be on to another app, per se. Yep, because I'll be able to use it again. Alright. First up it is Superman, Man of Steel, Volume 3. This book collects the first annuals for all three books. Action Comics, Avengers Superman, and Superman. This also basically collects... Now, I should point out, though, that the original Superman series, the first volume, that I did have A number 1, basically up until, I think it was like A number 9, I think it was, where, like, I think it was like a series of reprints. Yes, for some reason, DC did this thing, like, where, like, for a long period of time, where the annuals were simply reprints. Yeah, it's by far one of the most weirdest things. If you're curious, though, why the reprints? Well, here's the thing. The first annual was released for Superman. The original volume was released in August 1960. That was the first annual. Second annual, 1961. Yeah, and pretty much all these annuals were simply reprints. 3 was a reprint. Well, yeah, basically for some reason, 2 and 3 released in 1961. 4 was released in 1962. 5 was released also in 1962. 6 1963. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't until, let's see, by A number 8, that was the last one that basically produced a reprint story. Yeah. 8 was the last one. I think the first original one was A number 9. Yep. A number 9 was the first one basically to produce the original story. And then you have A number 10. Both of them done by Elias Migan. And A number 11 is a very infamous one because it's The Man Who Has Everything. It's a classic Alan Moore story. And there was A number 12, which was released in 1986. Basically August 1986. And I think this was the last original annual. Published for years. Well, until they did Annual 13, which is simply the continuation of this particular numbering. But this is the first one of the relaunch numbering for Superman. Yes. This was actually the first of 12 annuals. Like the first volume, 12 annuals. Yeah, if you're curious, though, why the heck basically they kept the same amount of numbering, I don't know. And if you're curious, though, about Avengers of Superman, this produced only 9 annuals. And here's the weird thing about these annuals. I'm looking them up, basically, that the first annual was released in 1987, obviously. Next annual was released 3 years later, and then they put out annuals every single year since until 1997. The Superman one, was it the same way too, you might ask? No. Well, not exactly, no. Day number 2 was released the following year, and then, of course, took a 3-year break, and then from 91 to 99 2000, basically all annuals. In the case of the classic Action Comics series, this one probably had, let's see, well, first basically it came out in 1987, next one was released 2 years later, and then it took another 2-year break before another annual came out. And from annuals 3 through 9, all released from 91 to 97. And then it took a 10-year break. Yes, a 10-year break. And then they resumed publishing for 3 straight years. For annuals 10 and 11. 13 was released 2 years after A number 12. And then, of course, they had the annuals for the second volume for the series. And then they brought back the annuals. Well, they call it 2020 annual for some reason. One was actually released just fairly recently. Yes, it was basically released just this week, just today. Yep. But the thing is, if you're curious about the annuals who wrote them, mostly put these stuff in here is most of them now the writers. Excuse me, are mostly John Burns, Jerry Ordway, Ron Fritz, Dan Jurgens, and Jim Starlin. The book also contains From Superman issues 12, 13, volume 2. Let's see. Action Comics 594 to 597. For Avengers Superman 436, 438. And Booster Gold number 23. This book also contains a one-shot. Yes, a one-shot that, to my knowledge, was not collected for years. It was a one-shot released back in the 80s. And by the way, this stuff was released for the period of 1987 to 1989. And you know the weird thing is, this book starts with all three annuals first. But all three annuals first. The first annual is done by John Byrne for Action Comics. Like, that's interesting. And it's a team-up story between Batman and Superman. By the way, this annual was also collected in Dark Knight's own Metropolis. Yep, it is another post-crisis meeting of let's say, a team-up between Superman and Batman. Yeah, it's simply them rescuing a girl. Gorgeous artwork by the person who did this interior artwork. This is done by John Byrne wrote this. This interior artwork is done by Art Adams, who I think is still doing artwork today. Yeah, as of fairly recently. This artwork is beautiful. Though it is done in the style of the 80s, but it is really good. Oh, and by the way, we have Batman wearing this costume. Yes, seriously. That was the costume he was wearing post... Though for some reason, the cowl, it looks like it's heavily inspired by, believe it or not, the Adam West Batman series. For some reason. Yeah, and it's a very interesting standalone story. Doesn't connect to the main book at all. No, just a quick standalone story. Does it have backup stories? Yes, sometimes the annuals do this. They have the first hand for Superman, where you have Superman fighting a giant monkey known as Titano. Yeah, that's simple what it is. It's all about Star Labs, basically. It's all about a creature out of control. Now, this annual, also by John Byrne, this artwork, the artwork is also done by Ron Fritz. But it's a standard Superman story you would see from the Silver Age. Him fighting an experiment gone wrong. That's something he would definitely do. And him fighting these caused some minor collateral damage. It's standard Superman stuff. And it's interesting, though, the fact they included this. And if you're interested, though, did Titano ever return after this particular annual? The answer is no, because he died. Yeah, this was his sole appearance. Yeah, and he dies by the end of the annual. We even have brief guest appearance by Amanda Waller and Sarge Steele, which seems quite interesting, the fact they appear in this annual. Yeah. Yeah, scientists basically doing experiments like, you can't touch me, you can't preach at me, and Lois punches him for it. Yep. Now, Avengers Superman, which at the time I believe was done by Marv Wolfman, for some reason he does not do the annual. Oh no. The annual is done by, this is quite strange, Jim Starlin does the annual. Avengers Superman. That's interesting. With Dan Jurgens on the artwork and Steve Mano. This may have been the first Superman book Dan Jurgens did the artwork for. Yes, it may be. I don't know. If I get a chance to ask him, was this the first thing he did? Yeah, and this is the one that features Sarge Steele. And him meeting up with the president. This, of course, is, I think, prior to Legends. So, meeting with the president, the real-life president, mind you, at that point, Ronald Reagan, passed away in 2004. Yeah, he passed away. I had a great-grandmother who actually passed away around the same time. I think she passed away, I think it's about 3 months after he passed away. Yeah, this was like years ago. I barely knew her. It was more my dad's grandmother. Yep. And what's the story of this one? Superman fighting a green monster. Yes, seriously, that is what he's fighting in this annual. Yes, and you might ask, is this another standard Superman story? Yes, this is normally what he would do. It's like they basically, that John Byrne just took the style of the Superman stories from like the Silver and Bronze. They just integrated with the style of the modern day, which works fine. Yeah, fates up against an alien. Yeah, and then right after this annual wraps up, we then move on to Action Comics 594, which is a crossover with Booster Gold. Yep, Booster Gold. We have a brief guest appearance by Batman. Yes, Batman. Yeah. Which I found this issue to be quite interesting. Yeah, Booster Gold. Excuse me. I believe at the time this was his first meeting with Superman. Well, technically he was a character for sure post-Crisis. So, yeah, this would be the first time. And then, of course, you think, oh yeah, this might be a bad, like, did Superman, did Booster Gold go rogue? No, it's explained in Booster Gold that this actually is an imposter. Yep, it's explained in Booster Gold of all things. Yeah, it's probably like a 3-part crossover story. He fights a robot. He turns out just a robot. But it's very interesting the fact they included the Booster Gold issue. And here's a strange little fun factor about the Booster Gold issue, the one that appears in here. 2 issues later, the book ends. No, seriously, it does. And then we finally the Superman in December of 1987, where you have basically a Valentine's issue where you have Superman meet Lori Lotto, I think her name is. She's basically the mermaid that Superman first met in the Silver Age. Yes, who was actually with many different love interests over the years. Those primary has always been Lois Lane. This is done by John Byrne and Carl Ketzler. Yes, they're the ones who does this particular one, and I believe this was the first. I'm just checking, just make sure here. I think this was the first post-crisis appearance of Lori Limeriss. Yeah, this was her first ever appearance post-crisis. It was this very issue. And the thing is, she didn't appear very much. Oh no. Like, by the way, first appearance, Superman 129. That was the original story. Yes, after this one in this book per se, she would not appear again for many years. Though she did appear as a recurring character in the 90s for Superman. But if you're curious though, has she appeared like post Flashpoint per se? Well, not that I could think of. They haven't really brought her in at all. No, they haven't. And you're thinking, why the heck wouldn't I bring in Lori Limeriss? There probably isn't a reason to, because Superman's married, so why would he bring an old girlfriend of his? Why did they have a version from the Dark Multiverse who's dead? Well, actually, she did appear sort of in a issue of Sideways. Yeah, and the thing is, she has not appeared post-crisis. Not post-crisis, post-Flashpoint. Yes. And she's only had, like, about 47 appearances. Yeah, she only appeared in, like, 48 comic books. Yeah. You're thinking, really? Yep. And, like, this was probably her only appearance in the 80s. Yeah. It seriously was. Because next appearance in this book would not be issue 63, which was published in 1992. Yeah. As far as I can tell, there's no real reason why they decided to have where she is somehow here, per se. And she's here just for a quick flashback issue. And that's it for her for the 80s until she appears a decade later. Or she becomes, like I said, basically a recurring character in the Superman comics for several years. We even get an appearance by Aquaman of all things. Yes. And then we have Action Comics 595. This actually is the first issue of, well, post-crisis stuff where John Byrne does not have Superman team up with some superhero. This actually is the first appearance of somebody. Who is he, might ask? Silver Banshee. The beautiful Silver Banshee. Yep. This is a first appearance. First appearance in the comic book, by the way. Yes. And by the way, you have all these guys comment how hot she is. By the way, Silver Banshee is Irish. That's not a joke. She seriously is. She is Irish. Yeah. And they even had her appear post Flashpoint in the page of Supergirl of all things. Yes. Silver Banshee. This actually was one of the I think was the very first original. If I remember correctly, I think this was the very first original Superman villain who appeared post-crisis. It was the first really one that people do know of. Yeah, people know how beautiful she is. Mm-hmm. And you might find this interesting, though. She does appear post-Flashpoint. Yeah. First appearance, Supergirl number 6. Well, a Batfly, anyways. Yep, where she primarily appeared in the pages of Supergirl. Also appeared in the issue of Superman Red and Blue, a Digital Book Man Tomorrow, one issue of Dark Knight's Death. Basically, she made sporadic appearances afterwards. Like, she appeared in 2 issues of Superman as part of the Superman Reborn stuff. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this was her very first appearance. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Yep. Their next appearance will be not made until Action Avengers Superman, Superman 23. Mm-hmm. The next appearance actually in issue 17. But that was first chronological appearance. Next appearance actually in Superman 17. Yeah. Yeah, for some reason they kept her basically now. She is a John Byrne character. Yep. And she's a very noteworthy John Byrne character. I mean, if you ask anybody who's a fan of Superman, you mention him Silver Banshee, yes, people know exactly who she is. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's very common. Yep. Even though she appeared that much post-crisis, she still was a very important character. Even appeared on the Superman animated series. Mm-hmm. I think John Byrne just created her just because, well, we need a real Superman villain, not a redesign of a classic Silver Age villain. Oh no, let's create a red villain, Silver Banshee. Which I find to be so interesting. And of course, we have a guest appearance by JLI. Because, well, Superman's getting hurt, so Superman does feed in this issue. And then basically we have, for basically some of these area books, basically we have stuff with Millennium. Yes, Millennium. First in Superman 13. Yep. Or basically, this is mostly just Superman's involvement in Millennium. Yeah, that's simply put what issues of Superman, Avengers Superman, and Action Comics all were. Basically, the Avengers Superman issue for him was actually 436. It was week 3 of Millennium. Yes. And Jerry Ord, now the writer of the issue is John Byrne. Yet for some reason, Byrne took over the writing, despite the fact Marvel was the primary writer of this book prior to this. Mm-hmm. The Millennium stuff is quite interesting. Him blowing the Manhunters, finding this long spaceship. This also basically has Lana Lang getting involved with the Manhunters. Yeah, and then finally, week 4, an issue of Action Comics finally have another team-up issue. This time he teams up with a guy who he shares a co-creator with. I think it's Joe Shuster. The Spectre. Yep, the Spectre. Interesting they have the Spectre fight the Manhunters. Given the fact how powerful he is, I'm surprised he didn't have his own... I think he'd have a book published first. I don't remember if he did or not. I know he had a book published in the 80s. And Doug Mowatt wrote it. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it covered the Superman for week 6. Where this is basically Superman working with Green Lantern. for this. Yeah, I think all the rest of the books are simply like Millennium tie-ins. I believe so, yes. They might be curious though. And then we have Avengers Superman 437, more Millennium stuff. Yeah, it's like throwing all the Millennium issues in one book. And finally, 597. An issue has nothing to do with Millennium. It just basically Lois, me, and Lana, first time post Flashpoint. And yeah, this issue kind of revisits their old Silver Age rivalry, their love triangle for Superman. Kind of, anyways. This also is the issue where Lois meets Jonathan Mark Hank for the first time. Yep. Yep. It's a very interesting issue. Basically, you could say this is loosely inspired by the Superman 3 movie. A little bit, not very much. Yep, and then we have the final Superman issue in here called Wings. Yep, and this is drawn by John Byrne. Is writing the artwork for this issue. It's mostly just a standalone issue, just Superman doing Superman things, help people out. Very standard Superman stuff. The Avengers Superman 438, where it deals with Brainiac. Yes, I think this was Brainiac's first post-Flashpoint, not Flashpoint, first Crisis appearance. Yeah. He imposed a magician. Mm-hmm. And then finally, the last thing we have in the book is Earth Stealers. Yeah, it's basically, of course, it's done by John Byrne. The artwork is done by Kurt Swan. The inking is done by Jerry Ordway. Usually he does the artwork, but man, he does the inking for this book. It's basically a sci-fi book. With all that black hole. It's basically, you could think of this Earth Stealers one-shot as a popcorn flick. That's the best way to describe it. It's a good action story, really fun, really good Superman story, per se. Don't know anything about Superman in the books in the time. Yeah. Really good stuff here. And that's that trade there. By the way, I give that trade a 10 out of 10. It's really good. Nothing really bad about it, per se. All right, moving on to a different book. Now, I have technically discussed the second, third, and fourth volumes for this series, but never the first. We have Justice League of America, the Silver Age, Volume 1. This collects Brave and the Bold, issues 20 to 30, which is the first appearance they made. Along with, I believe it's the first 8 issues of the ongoing series. Yeah, first 8 issues along with Mystery in Space 75. Everything in here is mostly by Gardner Fox. Yes, 28, which I consider this the true backstory. First appearance, first time Justice League team up. Not whatever JLA Year 1 came out with. This is the true backstory. Yeah, this is simply put the Justice League fighting Starro the Conqueror, who made his first live action appearance about, I think it was like last year, in the film The Suicide Squad. And he did not fight the Justice League. Nope, he fought the Suicide Squad. Yep. Now, this issue here was thoroughly discussed in an episode of The Top of the Fourth Wall. Link card and full review of this one. And it's a really good issue. Yeah, aside from the fact this is the first appearance of the Justice League themselves. By the way, if you're curious though, these issues came out for the period of February to March of 1960. That's basically the Brave and Bold issues. And it concludes in 1961. Yep. Yeah. But it's a very good action-paced story. You could say this particular comic was loosely inspired for the 3-part pilot for the animated series Justice League. Except it started with the White Martians. Well, a version of White Martian anyways. Yeah. Now in issue number 29 for Brave and Bold. This is basically during the trial period. Just do 28, 29, 30, basically a 3-part tryout story. Though they're all standalone stories. This one, any noteworthy character made a debut in this one? No, not that I can think of. It's mostly an issue. How should I put this? It's an issue that's not really talked about. Well, for good reason, because basically it's nothing really big or noteworthy, but just basically a challenge the weapons master. And if you're curious, though, does this guy ever appear again? Well, he does. He made 15 appearances. He was technically the first villain Justice League ever fought, because this is his sole appearance he made for years. Like, my God, they waited a long time to bring this character back. He didn't come back to issue 48 of the Justice League America comic book. But that itself was a reprint of Justice League America number 2. Yeah. That was his next extra appearance, was that book right there. And, yeah. He's not really big of a character, the Weapons Master. But issue 30, oh boy, this is a really good one. Though for the first villain Justice League, he's not that interesting a villain. He's okay, per se. Also, aside from the fact, just Rainbow 20's first appearance Justice League, it's also the first appearance of Starro and Snapper Carr and Happy Harbor. Yep. Now, 30. This is a more noteworthy issue than 29. This is the first appearance of Professor Anthony Ivo and Amazo, the android. Yes, the very android that is basically Marvelous I rip off in the 60s with the Super Daptoid. It's basically a robot that copies the powers of Justice League. Yeah, and the thing is, Ivo himself has actually appeared almost just as much as Amazo the robot. He's basically, Amazo's like his own separate thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I believe this guy was also responsible for creating not only Amazo, they also created a character known as the Tomorrow Woman. And some say he was loosely responsible for the creation of Red Tornado, the robot version of the character. Yep. Apparently his real name is Ives. Ivo was just basically just an alias. And apparently his partner is Professor T.R. Morrow. Yeah. Ivo himself basically is a very noteworthy character. He doesn't really appear very much. Like basically the one who appeared over the years. He appeared sporadically, but it wasn't like until like later years he appeared a lot more per se. Mm-hmm. And then move on to issue number 1. But it's absolute great issue. Good classic stuff here. And then move on to issue 1, which this issue has been referenced so many times over the years. As a matter of fact, the cover for this issue has been spoofed several times. The very first issue of Justice League America. And you're thinking, who's that guy? Who's that purple starfish guy? Well, that is Despero, a character who I've had this theory for years. Every time this guy shows up, Martian Manhunter has to be there. Well, he's captured a few times. That's generally how it is. It is by far one of the most baffling things about this character. I think it must be an editorial mandate where, like, every time, that he shows up. By the way, this also is the first appearance of basically this chessboard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They homage this in Justice League America 60. They also homage this for another cover here. But this book has been referenced a lot over the years. Oh, yeah, definitely. Even as recent as, like, the Jeff Johns one, which actually brought in the very chess that was actually used in this very issue by Flash. Mm-hmm. And also, something that Avengers also did too a roll call to figure out who's actually in the issue. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Basically, Despero is the only villain who makes his debut in this issue. And he is a very noteworthy character. He appeared on one episode of the Just Like animated series. Yep, one episode. Yep. But technically, no one can deny the fact he was the guy who appeared in the very first issue of Justice League America. And each issue felt like it was like a double-sized issue, per se. And then we have issue 2. Secret of the Sorcerers. And you're thinking, okay, who makes their debut in this issue, per se? Well, you know, it makes debut issue 3. 2. Troll King, Sterna, Simon Magnus. Yeah. Basically 3 sorcerers who barely do anything. Yeah. This issue has also been reprinted a couple times. Basically printed in Just Like America 48. Yeah. Simon Magnus. Yeah. You're probably thinking, who the heck is this guy? Just some weird sorcerer who appeared in this issue. And he appears in this issue 265 and he became a recurring villain for Creature Commandos. No, seriously, that's what they did with him. In the case, the other 2. Troll King. Mood of the Creature Commandos. Saturna. Killed off in Creature Commandos. Yeah, it's not really a noteworthy issue. It's pretty much a forgettable issue. You can think of it as, oh, let's have this issue and have Creature Commandos revisit it back in 2008. Yeah, very skippable issue. Just read it if you're reading the trade. Yeah, it's a very okay issue per se. But issue 3, the first appearance of Kanjuro, a character who's commonly associated with Adam Strange. What does they include the Adam Strange crossover in here? Yep. Yeah, and he's a slaver. That's what his Kanjuro is. And yeah, this was comic book's debut. He's just basically a standalone. He's basically just a... He's not a henchman per se. He's just a guy who just does stuff. We also have this thing where in this issue where, oh, let's have the Justice League ride on a rowboat in space. Yes. That's seriously what that he does. And of course, you have him pop up in an issue of Mystery in Space. Yep. It's just basically an issue that deals with basically... it's kind of the way basically transfer Kanjuro over to Adam Strange. That's... You can kind of say that's the point of this issue per se. Mm-hmm. But it's a book size. Basically, it's like 30 pages. Issue 4, we had the first person join Justice League in this issue. Green Arrow. Excuse me. Yep. And he basically helps the Justice League help save the world from a plot from a group of villains. Aside from the fact that this is the issue where he joins the group, there's not really a lot of noteworthy stuff about issue 4. Like, is there any like really cool villains pop up in this issue? No. It's a guy called Xandar, who appears just in this issue. And that was it. Yeah, that's issue 4 for you. And it took some time for another member to join Justice League. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. The issue itself is kind of weak, but it's only noteworthy for Green Arrow to join Justice League. That's basically it. Yeah. Now, in the case of the very next issue, it's basically like, Oh, let's have them fight a group of random villains from the Rogues Gallery. Oh, by the way, the villains over here are the Clock King, a Green Arrow villain, Captain Cold. This issue was the debut of Dr. Destiny. Yes, Dr. Destiny, aka John D. Yep, this issue was his debut. And I think he appeared on, if I remember correctly, he was part of the Elseworlds crossover. We also have the Electric Man. And who villain is he? He is a... The Electric Man, let's see. I think he's like a Superman villain. No, he's an Aquaman villain. Yep, that's basically what he is. Gateway Mastermind. Puppet Master, I believe he's a Superman villain. Gateway Master, I believe he's a Martian Manhunter villain. Yeah, he is. He is, in fact, a Martian Manhunter villain. Okay. Puppet Master, I believe this is the one who's a Superman villain. Nope, he is a Green Lantern villain. I forgot about that. Yeah, he appeared even in the issue of Teen Titans. Professor Menace, a Wonder Woman villain. Yeah, you have Superman in the issue, and none of his villains pop up in the issue. Yeah, it's like, oh, let's have these like, villains pop up here, which I found the most interesting thing. Just have these really cool villains. But yeah, it's a really good. You kind of say it's the first time that they just like fight a group of noteworthy, big name villains. Yep. Issue 6, The World Fortune. Yeah, this is the debut of Artemis Fowler, I believe it is. I think that's his name. Yeah, he is also commonly associated with the Royal Flush Gang. Artemis Fortune. Yep. Yeah, a character who's commonly associated with the Royal Flush Gang. Yep. That's what this issue's debut of. It's a gambling issue. But it's mostly taking on casino run by this guy. And if you're curious, though, when is the next time he physically appears? I mean, if you're curious, though, he's dead. He got killed off prior to Flashpoint. Yeah, he got killed off in Just Like America, volume number 37. Basically, if you're thinking, did Gardner Fox kill him off? No, it was Lean Ween. But he's commonly associated, like I said, with the Royal Flush Gang. Yeah, he didn't appear very much at all. I mean, after his debut, he'd appear again to issue 14. Yeah, 14. That's when the next time he physically appears. Yeah. And then after that, it was next in Just Like America 13. Basically, he's just a standard Just Like villain. But in case you're curious, though, is he ever outside of the comic? No, not really. But basically, he would come back years later, basically terrorize him as part of the Royal Flush Gang. Issue 7. Any big name villains make a debut this issue, per se? No, just like Fight Aliens. And Happy Harper. Yep. And in issue 8, if I gotta go Pete Rockets for an issue. Yeah, it's like, sort of interesting that we get kind of weirdest issues. Yeah, and that's kind of where we end off there. But don't worry, stuff goes up basically after these issues. But yeah, basically 7 and 8 are not that noteworthy issues. Basically, let's have issue 7 where they fight a group of aliens. And in issue 8, they fight a random one-shot character. That's it. Yep. And if you're curious, though, when was the first time Secret Sanctuary showed up? The same time that the Just Like first showed up. Yep. And it's kind of explained that the reason why the place exists was because it was dug out by Flash, Green Lantern, and Superman. And I believe the technology was supplied by Batman. Yes, I believe it was. If I'm not mistaken. Yes. Hmm. Yes, thanks to the aliens pop up in the very next issue, that's how they gave it acceptance base. Hmm. Yeah. But those are the trades for you. Sorry for the length of this video, but there was a lot to talk about here. Yep. And if you're curious, though, is there any more Justice League of America Silver Age books? No, that was the last one to talk about. In the case Man of Steel, there technically is more, but it's that trade there. That was our recollecting stuff that I collecting once before. This was a new printing of it. It is strange though they haven't produced and put out any more of these Justice League America Silver Age books, and by book 4, they're only up to like. Oh, let me look here. Yeah, book 4 for these Silver Age trade paperbacks. Like, how far are they out there by book 4? They're only up to like issue 41 that came out in December 1965. So technically, with this one, I've covered the first half of the 60s for Justice League. When am I cover more books? Yes, I definitely will because I love Justice League America. I like their stuff, but I will soon move out of the Silver Age of comics. When? Don't know. Probably when Gardner Fox leaves the book. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But if you're curious, though, when does Gardner Fox have stopped writing this comic, per se? He writes this book for quite some time. Yes, he does. Let's see. I'm going to try to find it here. His last issue he did for Justice League. It's going to take a while because the guy wrote a lot of comics over his lifetime. My gosh, he wrote a lot of comics. You can kind of think of him as basically DC Stan Lee. Okay, he did the book up to issue. Was it 45? Mostly he did the first. Let's see. He did the first 65 issues. He did issues 67, 76, 84, 85, 91 to 90, 94, 97, 99, 110 to 116, and that is it. Yeah, 116, the last issue he ever did for Justice League, but that was I think this was a reprint. Yeah, I think this is mostly just a reprint. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's mostly a reprint, but it is technically the last book he's associated with, but that's probably what they do with him. Just have his issues appear as reprints in an issue of Justice League. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think like 65 was probably his last official issue he did for the book. Mm-hmm. Yes. Because I think with the very next issue, Denny O'Neil took over briefly before later on Jerry Conway took over for a long period of time. Yep. But not much else to say with these two books. Both good. So, yeah, that's it for of you. I probably will get a chance to do another Super Sentai review for this evening. I'll do more tomorrow, okay? Next video. Bye.